Hi everyone. So for our presentation today, we are data analysts working for a gaming company who wishes to distribute their games on Steam. Now, Steam is a very popular gaming platform made specifically for computers, where consumers can both play and purchase games similar to Xbox or PlayStation. Naturally, the gaming company that we work for wants to know what types of games are the most popular and which generate the most revenue so that they can sell their products with the best returns. Additionally, the company has also expressed interest in pursuing an alternate strategy of producing low quality, low cost games where the customers are drawn to by the cheap prices. Their goal with this strategy is to capture part of the market share from the predominantly high quality, premium price developers who have dominated the video game industry. Now, from our research of looking and examining genre and categories of all the games that are on Steam, we determined that games of the action genre and of the multiplayer category have consistently generated the greatest revenues and the highest popularity ratings. Specifically, games that are tagged with the category of multiplayer earn 3.5 million on average, while games of the action genre have actually earned 19.2 billion over the 3 decades of our entire dataset. Additionally, while it's possible to create low cost, low price games to earn revenue, it could actually hurt our company's reputation. Furthermore, our analysis shows that game developers who adopt this low cost, low price strategy are often not amongst the high revenue generating game developers. Hence, our company should create an action game that has a multiplayer feature rather than pumping out a lots of easy to produce, low cost, low quality games. Now, on this slide, we assess which genres generate the most revenue. From the get go, we instantly see that the action genre clearly takes the lion's share of revenue, where it occupies more than half of the total shares of revenue out of all the games in our data set. Specifically, the action genre took 19.2 billion out of the possible 30.8 billion of game revenue that was earned on Steam in the past 30 years. Now, to put it in perspective, adventure, the next highest generated genre, it only generated about 2 billion. In other words, the action genre generated 8 times more than the next leading genre. Now, from this chart, we can easily see action, adventure, and indie as being the top three revenue generating genres, and we'll allude to them throughout the whole presentation. Now, since action it can be a little bit vague, because like, what is it? I think it's important to define the genre more specifically, because we're going to be making an action game, right? Now, usually action games often compose of some kind of combat. So it could be shooting, it could be some kind of like fighting game, it could have like swords, stuff like that. There could be a lot of other elements too beyond just combat. It could have some like running through an environment like a city or jungle. But again, the action genre always is high paced and heavy emphasis on combat. And that combat, it can be either realistic or it can be cartoony, fun. Uh, the action genre is different from other genres. For example, on this list, it has the violent genre. There's another one up there called the gore genre. These games are have more emphasis on, again, gore, or it can invoke aspects of like horror games or like horror, like the movie, like horror movies, and so those are what those games are about. It's definitely different from like action games. Now, on this slide, we assess genre versus popularity ratings because, as I mentioned previously, a game company can release low cost, low quality, revenue generating games that many people will buy, due to the cheap prices. However, such a game it could generate negative ratings and ultimately hurt the brand name. Here, the genres are organized by average net ratings, which is the average of the sum of the positive and negative ratings that a game received by its owners. Additionally, the number assigned to each genre is the ratings percentage, which is basically the amount of positive ratings over the total ratings. Now, the total average rating percentage here is 71.4%, and that will be our benchmark to assess. And here we see that the top three revenue generating genres from the previous slide, again, that's action, adventure, and indie, they aren't as high when it comes to ratings, or at least ratings percentage. The action's rating percentage is pretty much at the average, whereas the indie and adventures are only slightly above. Now, reading the chart, the more toward the left the genre is, the better the average net rating it has. And so the fact that, again, action, indie, and adventure are on the second column, that bodes well for them, meaning that their net rating is actually, it's actually pretty good. Now, one thing to also keep in mind is that the highest genres that have the highest average net ratings are they're they have a very niche customer base, I should say, and they don't appeal to the overall market like many other games genres. So, for example, think of software training, right? Your average Joe customer, he isn't gonna buy a software training game for fun. Usually these kinds of software or games, they're meant to build a skill set. So maybe someone might buy it to enter a new market or a new job or something like that. And so those are not exactly the typical games that we think of you play it for fun. And so these kind of what I'm trying to say is that these kind of genres might skew the data a little bit. And so actually I would think that if we take these out, this would shift action, indie, and adventure more closely to the left, so it would have a higher net rating overall. At least on the chart. In fact, I could probably do a little bit of that here, and so we see that it shifted a little bit. So adventure went up, action went up too. So that's what I'm talking about. Now we get to this, which is our category analysis. Yes, now this is our category analysis. Now, category, unlike genre, is all about special features that a game may have. And thus, we're looking for those special features that are either extremely popular or, in the case of this slide, is shown to be highly revenue generating. Now, from this particular slide, games that have the Steam trading cards generate about 5.5 million in revenue, while multiplayer, the second highest revenue generating category, generated about 3.5 million. Now, it's interesting to point out that the multiplayer is 3.5 times higher than the third category, which is the single player. Now, thus, from a game creation standpoint, the game that we should create, it should include Steam trading cards, as well as definitely, at the very least, a multiplayer option. Maybe we can include a single player option or even Steam achievements if our resources allow. Now, one thing, again, to keep in mind is that we can't include every single revenue generating category there is. And that's simply because it would be too expensive. And it would also draw away resources, time, and attention from the more revenue generating categories. Because we definitely want to put more emphasis on like the multiplayer or the Steam trading cards. Now, on this slide, we compare the category with its popularity rating. Again, the ratings that the customers have given it. From the get-go, we can instantly see that multiplayer being the largest category in terms of popularity, with an average net rating of about 5,000. The second highest is cross-platform multiplayer, which is basically a special kind of multiplayer, and it's 1,700. Yes. Now, from both this slide and the previous, I think we can conclude that yes, at the very least, our game that we want to produce should have the multiplayer option. Now, another point of interest is that both Steam achievements and single player appear relatively high on both the revenue chart graph in the previous slide, as well as this graph, sorry, the ratings chart. Now, I think if we I think it can be argued that cross-platform multiplayer is just the same as multiplayer. So if we were to just combine this with the multiplayer category, then it would definitely shift Steam achievements to second place and single player to like third place. I think yes. Thus, from both slides, I think we can conclude that we should produce again an action multiplayer game with a single player option that has both Steam achievements and Steam trading cards. Okay, there. Now, on this slide, we pivot our discussion to determine the alternate strategy where our company wants to sell high quantities of low quality, low cost games at very cheap prices. This high quantity, low quality strategy, has worked with other industries. So we look at the retail industry, for example, they have Walmart, or we look at like Timex in terms of watches, compared to a Rolex or something like that. Now, on the chart on the left, we have a list of developers who produce the most games, and often many of these companies do employ that version of high quantity, cheap, low quality, low price strategy that we just discussed. And so, for example, the first and the third on this list, they produce mainly like text-based games, and so putting text on a video screen, that doesn't take a lot. It's cheap. You don't need to make a unique engine. You don't have to hire a lot of developers to get into the nitty-gritty of things. It's very cheap to produce. Now, we compare the chart on the left with the chart on the right. And the chart on the right, they list the top revenue-generating games. And next to each of the blue bars being revenue, we see the game developer who created those games. Now, when we compare the two graphs, we see that virtually none of this low quality, low price developers appear on the chart on the right. Additionally, again, looking at the type of games, as I mentioned, this is just text-based games, easy to produce. But the games here, they're definitely not text games. They're highly graphical, very detailed, complex functions that require an expensive engine to run. The games are basically day and night. Like, no way, right? And so, thus, we can conclude that while a company, it can produce, again, a low quality, low cost, low price strategy, we can see that the more revenue generating companies, the ones that are at the top of the list, are in fact those who produce this high quality premium price strategy. In other words, the low quality, low cost, low price strategy is not recommended for our business. Now, on this slide, we again take another look at the highest revenue generating games to determine the more common traits that may indicate which category or genres yields the most revenue. The chart here, it takes the top 5 games from the graph on the left, which is the top 5 revenue generating games. Here we can already see that in the action. In the genre, all of them are in the action category. So again, yes. So all of them in the action genre. And when we look again in the category, they all share multiplayer. So yep, it does support our conclusion that yes, we should definitely produce some kind of action multiplayer game. Now, here is a similar version of the previous slide, except the focus is more on ratings. So these are the top 5 highly rated games. And again, when we look at both category and genre, again, it's the action genre that 4 out of the 5 of them have the action genre, while all of them have the multiplayer category. So again, yes, it supports our conclusion that we should make an action multiplayer game. In saying that, I would also say that probably you should include the trading cards and the Steam achievements, and maybe have a single player option if resources allow. But at the very least, it should just be action and multiplayer. Yeah. Thank you.